Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, an insight. Episode 190. My humble prostrations at the lotus feet of our Sadguru Sai. By the divine grace of Sai, an attempt has been made to translate the gist of the divine discourse of Sri Ramanathan brother telecasted in Sai TV. This is purely done to share the glory of Sai and his divine teachings with more insight to the aspirants. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnuhu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Devotees, in the previous episode, we got introduced to Baba Sahib alias Neelkant Sahasrabuddhe, who was drawn to Shirdi by Sadguru Sri Sai Maharaj, was also an old acquaintance of Tatya Sahib Nulkar. We listened to the divine sport played by Sri Sai Maharaj in pulling him to Shirdi. Now, let's see more Leelas connected to this devotee. It's very significant to know about him as he played a vital role at the time of passing away of Tatya Sahib Nulkar. Baba Sahib came to Shirdi with the opinion that Shirdi is a hamlet and the residents are ignorant folks who consider a mad fakir as a saint. This judgment he derived from the statement given by a co-passenger resident of Kopargaon in the train while he was commuting from Bandra to Shirdi with the vessels sent by Nana Sahib Chandorkar and Dikshit to be handed over in Shirdi. Dikshit also sent a note through Baba Sahib to Shama to arrange for necessary funds at Shirdi, while Nana gave ₹10 for his expenses. Thus, Baba Sahib reached Satewada with the firm conviction that Sri Sai Maharaj is a mad fakir and the villagers of Shirdi are having blind faith on him. He kept all the vessels at Satewada that he brought along with him. Baba Sahib was pulled to Shirdi by Sri Sai Baba in the guise of bringing these vessels from Bandra to hand over them to Shama. But the actual sankalpam of Sri Sai Maharaj was to make Baba Sahib serve Nulkar during the final days of his life, as he would be granted liberation by him during this birth. Baba Sahib came out of Satewada in search of Shama and was enquiring a stranger if he knew who Madhavrao Deshpande was. There he found Tatya Sahib Nulkar and immediately identified him to be his classmate Lakshman Krishnaji Nulkar. Out of excitement, he quickly called out, "Lakshman Krishnaji Nulkar!" Whereas Nulkar couldn't recognize him. They are meeting after a span of almost 25 years. After they completed their high school, they both moved to different locations to pursue their higher studies and continued with their career and life. They never got an opportunity to meet all these years. Neelkant had a great memory that immediately he recognized his friend, whereas Nulkar was puzzled looking at him. Neelkant reminded him their school days and Nulkar recollected him. Nulkar was extremely happy to meet Neelkant. They both embraced each other. Nulkar asked him how he came to Shirdi. Neelkant narrated that he was sent by Nana Sahib Chandorkar and Kaka Sahib Dikshit to deliver the vessels which he brought from Bandra and kept at Satewada, and now looking for Shama to collect some funds for his expenses and hand over the vessels to him. Nulkar said, "Oh, not to worry. We can go to Shama's home. I can take you." Meanwhile, let's go to Satewada and chat for some time. Saying so, he took him to Satewada and they talked on various subjects. Nolkar mainly talked the glory of Sri Sai Maharaj to Nilkant and told his intention to stay in Shirdi ever serving Sri Sai Maharaj. This statement of Nolkar was not very appealing to Nilkant, so he was merely hearing it. Nolkar kept on talking about the supreme qualities of Sri Sai Maharaj. He said, Sri Sai Maharaj's words and deeds are always pregnant with meanings and not mere statements or actions. Sri Sai uses parables in his talks. He speaks in euphuism and it will always contain a subtle message for us. Thus, Nolkar gave lots of details about Sri Sai Maharaj. Nilkant was of the mindset that no harm seeing this saint once. Now, both the friends came to Dwarakamai for Sri Sai Maharaj's darshan. As soon as both entered Dwarakamai, Sri Sai Baba gave a stern look at Nilkant. While Nilkant was about to bow to Sri Sai Maharaj, the all-pervasive Supreme God Sri Sai said, If you bow to this Tatyaba and Jog, you will not lose your self-respect. Sri Sai Maharaj would address Nolkar as Tatyaba whenever Nolkar was present before him. Whereas, when he sends a message through a messenger, then Nolkar is addressed as Matara or Mahatara. Nilkant was unable to catch the purport of this statement of Sri Sai because he thought as Nolkar and himself are of the same age, why should he serve him? Moreover, he is my classmate. I don't see any special quality in him. Then why should I bow down to him? Or under what circumstance should I serve him? It didn't make any sense to him. This statement of Sri Sai Maharaj reinstates Nilkant's opinion that Sri Sai Baba is none other than a mad fakir. Both left Dwarakamai after darshan, and Nilkant, while walking out, raised a sarcastic question to Nolkar. Your guru is instructing me to serve you. Come on, tell me, what kind of service should I provide you? Nolkar said, Even I didn't get the purport of this statement, but I am certain that Sri Sai Maharaj's words are always pregnant with meanings, which we devotees have experienced personally. Nilkant thought, Oh God, this person is having blind faith on this mad fakir, and that's the reason he has quit his job as a judge and sitting in this remote village. Looks like he has also turned insane being in the company of that fakir. Both came back to Satewada and rested there chit-chatting on various matters. During the conversation, Nolkar shared many divine sports of Sri Sai Maharaj that were related to his assertion, which were mostly spoken as parables or in euphuism. Nilkant is also a scholar and is well versed in Upanishads. These divine leelas and the parables made him to observe the connection it had with the spiritual philosophies. Still, there is no proof that if this is what Sri Sai Baba meant to convey, or is it just a sheer coincidence of events. Nilkant couldn't conclude if Sri Sai Baba was a mad fakir or if he was a god incarnation. He was thinking the residents of Shirdi are not very literate. Hence, they might be giving undue importance and reverence to the words of this fakir based on their beliefs and celebrating him as a saint. Still, the following days, when he went for Sri Sai Baba's darshan, He listened to the parable stories and had a firm thought that they are packed with spiritual philosophies. But he was unwilling to believe that Sri Sai Maharaj is a supreme God. So was doubting it if Sri Sai Baba is even aware that his words reflect the divine philosophies. Does he have that insight, or is he speaking some random words and those are reverberating the philosophies stated in the holy scriptures? Day by day, curiosity of Nilkant was increasing. He began to trace out the philosophical significance of all that Sri Sai spoke. His mind was always pondering on the words of Sri Sai Maharaj. At one point, he thought rather than battling with these thoughts, he would better discuss this with Sri Sai Baba directly. So he went and spoke thus: Baba, I am unable to comprehend the gist of the parables that you speak. Henceforth, speak to me plain terms that I can understand. Sri Sai responded, Okay, and blessed him. Allah bala karega. On one occasion, Sri Sai Baba again spoke parables to Nilkant. He said, My dear, a stove will produce flames only if there is fire, and that will cause the vessel kept on top of it to get the heat and cook the food. Instead, if the fire is on some other stove that is next to it, then how will the food on the first stove get cooked? This assertion of Sri Sai Maharaj kindled a spark of thought in Nilkant's mind. This metaphor made him to realize that the comparison of two stoves is made by Sri Sai Baba to show the close connection between him and Nulkar. The fire in the stove indicates the spiritual quest which is high in Nulkar. Hence, the loving devotion overflows in his heart as that of the food in the stove that has fire is getting cooked. In accordance to that, his spiritual progress is also fast. Whereas, in case of Nilkant, he is skeptical about the divinity of Sri Sai Baba, owing to which there is no spiritual quest, that is, there is no fire. Obviously, there is no loving devotion. Then, how will the food in the dish will get cooked is a question raised by Sri Sai Baba. This parable was only meant for Nilkant, which was completely perceived by him. Nilkant was astonished to witness the fervent devotion of his friend Nulkar upon Sri Sai Baba. Still, he considered that to be utter stupidity. Sri Sai Maharaj has now clarified all his suspicions. His heart was overflowing with loving devotion. This cultivated faith on Sri Sai Maharaj. He was determined to grow spiritually. Over the next few days, whenever he went for Sri Sai Baba's darshan, Sri Sai Baba kept on repeating the same dialogue. Serve Tatya Ba. In fact, Nulkar was also next to him in all those circumstances. While they both were returning from the masjid, Nilkant would ask Nulkar, What kind of service should I do to you? Your gurus keep on insisting every day. Should I press your feet? Saying so, he pretended to do. His words were packed with sarcasm and irritation. Nulkar was not bothered about the behavior of Nilkant towards him, as he was his close friend, but at the same time, he couldn't tolerate the mockery done to the words of his beloved and most revered Guru, Sri Sai Maharaj. So he told his friend, Nilkant, please don't make fun of the assertions of Sri Sai Maharaj. If you ask me to explain the meaning of his assertions, I cannot do that as I am incapable to even understand those. But I believe that there is some hidden meaning behind this statement of Sri Sai Baba. I am unable to tolerate this kind of behavior of yours. Hence, please don't talk anything about this to me in future. Neelkant understood the feelings of Nulkar and said, Okay, you please don't get upset and I will not discuss on this further. Devotees, to recall, Neelkant came to Shiradi to hand over the vessel sent by Nana Sahib Chandorkar. But after meeting Nulkar, he extended his stay. Thus he stayed there for more days than planned, and his faith on Sri Sai Maharaj kept growing little by little. He thought of going back to his hometown, so in between he kept requesting Sri Sai Maharaj's consent to leave. Neelkant was told that unless Sri Sai Maharaj permits him to go, he shouldn't leave Shiradi as that will result in hurdles and inconvenience to him. So he didn't dare to start from Shiradi without the permission of Sri Sai Baba. Nulkar was an ardent devotee of Sri Sai Baba and has been associated with Sri Sai Maharaj for a long time. Thus, he also became close to Shama. As Neelkant was staying with Nulkar, thus he also became close with Shama. Neelkant sought Sri Sai's permission through Shama. So, Shama approached Sri Sai Baba and asked, Deva, grant permission to Neelkant to go back to his home. Sri Sai said, Wait for another 4 days. This Sri Sai Baba said every time he was approached. Thus, many weeks passed. On one occasion, Shama pressurized Sri Sai Maharaj to grant permission to Neelkant, saying, Deva, he has to take care of many chores, so please grant him leave. For which Sri Sai Baba responded quickly, Shamya, he is also my man. Why do you want to chase him away from here? He further added, I have to get a work done by him. Let him stay at the doorsteps of this masjid like a dog and keep guarding it. As Neelkant's opinion about Sri Sai Maharaj has drastically changed and his mind is now more inclined towards Sri Sai Baba, hence, he didn't mind being called as a dog. Sufi saints use the names of animals to indicate the arrival of people. This is a very common practice among them. For instance, when Abdul Baba came to Shiradi for the first time, Sri Sai Maharaj said, Mera Kavla Ayela, that is, my crow has come. These metaphors are very commonly used by the saints. The literal meaning of these statements can be understood by us only at a later period. In this context, Sri Sai Baba addressed Neelkant as dog to imply that the dog is a very selfless and faithful creature. Sai philosophers think that Sri Sai Maharaj must have intended to highlight this quality in Neelkant. To recall, during the year 1904, when people in huge numbers died due to the outbreak of plague epidemic, many left the place where Neelkant Sahasrabuddev was residing. But he stayed there and lifted the dead bodies of the residents, carried it on his shoulders and cremated it in the funeral ground. Such a great selfless service was provided by Neelkant. Hence, he might have been addressed as a dog. After Sri Sai Maharaj professed these words, there was a tremendous change and that became the turning point in Nulkar's life. What was that? Subsequently, many things happened in Nulkar's life which shall be heeded in the coming episode. Bow to Sri Sai, peace be to all. Om Sai Ram.